Welcome back to Conservative Conversations. I'm your host, Reid,
And I'm Frank.
and today we're going to be talking all about the student loan forgiveness program. This will probably be a little bit of a short episode, but it'll be pretty informative, hopefully. So let's get right into it. And our most recent update is the payments have been, the pause on payments has been extended
Right.
until I believe sometime in June 2023, which coincides with the recent update that in February the Supreme Court is going to hear oral arguments on cases related to the student loan debt forgiveness program. And during the time between now and when they make a decision, in June, the program has been paused. The government's not able to process any new applications or accept any new applications and process any current applications until a decision has been made. And I believe that is the most current update we have so far. And we pretty much have predicted so far that we probably see the Supreme Court take this case up.
Right. It was just a matter of time, really.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a super interesting case. I think there's going to be a little bit of nuance to it, but I don't know how much it's really going to matter. And I think you might agree with me here because I think in a way, and with this Supreme Court that we have, it's probably going to be another big win for, individual freedom. And I think that the head of some department, like the Department of Education, I don't think can just like spend all this money like without congressional approval and just like with the swipe of a pen just be able to act in this way.
Right.
So I think it's probably going to get smacked down.
Yeah.
But I also find it kind of interesting. Some of the points that I wanted to make will probably be brought up and be addressed in the case. So, I can't wait to watch it and hear the arguments. But I'm also just kind of interested, because as I've said before, I'm one of the people who has already submitted an application that's pending. So just to kind of play devil's advocate, I'm kind of curious about doing so and playing out some of the implications, of some of the promises that the government's made. And so, like, when I was thinking about this question, I even just sort of wondered in my notes, how many applications have been approved? Like, has anybody been told? Has anybody been notified that their application was approved? Well, I looked it up. And yes, the government should have done this. And the link for this will be, in the show notes, of course. But the government errantly sent 16 million people a letter saying, essentially an email or whatever the case may be. But they told them that they were approved for this program or whatever. But then subsequently, another 9 million people were told in specific language that they would receive loan forgiveness, that it, some sort of monetary something would be applied.
Right. I actually have from an MSN article, because I tried to look up a good article that had a timeline of each of these cases and stuff, and I didn't really find one. But this MSN article had somewhat of a timeline. And one of the things it pointed out was on October 27th, I believe is what it said, Joe Biden told a reporter that he expected checks to go out sometime in early November.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've made a lot of false promises,
Yeah.
okay? And so it's sort of interesting. I mean, I'm not a case. I don't know if there would be one. But if somebody was foolish enough to, really take this as money in the bank, and let's say that they did something they shouldn't have or something like that, and maybe they've put themselves in some kind of jeopardy now because they thought they would receive some kind of $20,000 relief that they didn't get or whatever. I mean, this is a big psych out, that the government's doing here. So it just makes me wonder, I mean, if the case gets thrown out, like I probably think it probably will, but I just wonder if these people who've received such notices, I'm not one of them. I've never received any wrongful email stating I've got $20,000 in the bank or anything. But somebody might have apparently at least 9 million were told in some kind of specific language that they would be receiving a, forgiveness of this loan or whatever. So I just wonder about if they'd have standing or damages in a way that they could pursue, So I just wonder if this could just go back to court again in the future. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, I
it
feel
definitely seems like it could.
I mean, it does seem like, and I just want to see if that'll be addressed in this case. That's what I think's interesting. If somebody would argue this now, that, I mean, what if somebody's like, I bought a $20,000 car because,
Right.
I wouldn't have done that, but I got this letter,
Right.
So anyway, one of the biggest objections also that I've heard, that the, whoever's litigating this is arguing, is that the government was supposed to have this period sort of for like public commentary, where they could the public could come forward and give their take,
Right.
and sort of, air their grievances against this, whatever, this law or change in law,
Right.
or whatever that was going to be enacted. And that didn't happen here.
Right.
Well, I also just kind of wonder about that, just to sort of play devil's advocate one more time. But it just makes me wonder, I mean, the government does whatever they want to do all the time. Are there not other cases where such a hearing, such a procedure wasn't observed, it was just totally circumvented and skirted and ignored? They just threw caution to the wind, and they still did it anyway?
I wouldn't be surprised, because one of the things they're citing for not having to do this is this Heroes Act or whatever.
Right.
That this whole thing's based on.
On this,
this 2003
part of the
law.
pandemic. So that's interesting. I think that'll be super interesting to see. Because, I mean, I couldn't think of any other examples, but I'm just sure there are some. I mean, like the only sort of example I could think of is like the Affordable Care Act. But that's totally different because, that was an act of Congress, and not just like some governmental change in their structure or whatever, like the EPA or something like that.
Right.
But so anyway, I just think there's some interesting sort of elements to this, and I'm interested to see how they'll play out. I definitely want to hear all the justices' take on it,
Yeah, I think it will be a pretty interesting case to watch because, like you pointed out, some people have essentially been told money's on the way to them, but it's not coming, and they may have planned accordingly, whether they might have been wise to or not.
Somebody might have,
yeah.
And what about them?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So it'll be interesting to hear what all kind of arguments are made at the oral arguments.
Well, and how they rule on it too.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
I really like the justices we have now. Some of them.
Right.
And so I think it'll be interesting to see how they do it.
Right. So in February is when the oral arguments are supposed to be, and then a long wait until June for a decision. But luckily, the payment requirements have been paused for any of those that might apply to. So hopefully we'll hear some good news one way or the other. Whether it's good for some or not good for others.
Well, it doesn't matter. It'll be a womp womp for somebody.
Right, yeah. Somebody's going to get the short end of the stick.
Yep.
Which,
probably all these people who believed the president.
Right. Yeah.
It'll just show one more way that he's a big old liar.
Right.
And
He makes all these promises and then blames other people when they don't.
But I don't know. What
through.
if... Okay, wait. I've just thought of this. But what if you could say... I mean, he talked about it on the campaign trail. But what if they try to argue that, him making all those promises on the campaign trail, that was the public hearing, period. The public comment, the public feedback.
Well, I can definitely see them. I mean, I don't think that's something they would actually do, but I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, and in a way, see, here's how I come to that. He's just trying to fulfill a campaign promise. It's not like they've put forth any legislation. There's nothing backing this other than him running his big old damn mouth.
Right.
And that's the whole thing I was saying is he's going to look like such a liar. And so why not? Why don't they just argue?
Whatever.
He did say all this.
Yeah.
There was plenty of public pushback.
They voted for him, don't you see?
That's right.
That's
I passed the bill.
That's all a public hearing you need, public comment.
That's right.
The man
Most
won.
votes in history.
Right. And the people have spoken at the midterms, they say,
That's right.
affirming his agenda. So, yep, that's definitely an argument I could see them making, although I don't think they actually will.
I'm just grasping at straws, trying to see how they'll argue this.
Right.
But
Yeah. It will definitely be one case to watch, for sure. And we'll bring it here to you, folks, when it happens sometime in February.
That's right.
We'll keep an eye out for it. And when the oral arguments, that can be tough to say.
Oral arguments.
Yeah, when they are heard and argued, we'll let you know.
We'll be there.
That's right. And if you want to hear any specifics on the student loan program, we'll be glad to try to get some info for you. Just be sure to tweet at us at contempconserv, or you can email us. You'll find those email addresses in the show notes. You can also visit our website and leave a comment on the post for this episode. And be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this fine podcast.
And as always, thanks for listening.